hello and welcome to the Art of Being Human. You know, we've been talking about inward aggression, outward aggression. And I'm going to be doing defense mechanisms today, but I just want to make a few final comments on what we discussed last time. How do you handle intense emotions? So there's a way of doing that. For one thing, it's good to acknowledge what you're feeling. If you acknowledge what you're feeling, and you don't have to tell the world about it, but you know, just even to yourself or to your closest friends or whoever you're dealing with, that tends to make the emotion less intense. The more you hang on to the emotion and hold it, and don't say anything about it, and don't want to reveal it at all, the more magnified that emotion becomes. And I think it might be because you need to express it. And if the emotion is not being expressed, then what happens is that your body wants it to be expressed, and it becomes more and more intense. To say, this is a bad day, or I feel emotional today, or I'm having trouble with anxiety today, people know that you're doing that. But that's okay. It reduces the anxiety. Now, in a lot of the therapeutic methods that are used to heal extreme anxiety, ones that are caused by trauma, we've talked a little about trauma and what it is, and the fact that you can rehearse those emotions for years, they keep on coming back. Some of these therapeutic methods that seem to be effective is that you are taught how to think about something else. And then as you're thinking about the things that caused you so much pain, you're also thinking about something else, something that you're introducing to yourself that you think about, and it reduces the level of the anxiety of the trauma. For example, in some therapeutic methods, you might be taught to think of the emotion. They want you to experience the emotion because that's what the problem is anyway, or part of the problem. And then at the same time, do something else. Blink your eyes, look over to the side, rub your hand, think of something to sing, a little ditty to sing, or something that's going to be distracting to you at the same time that you're experiencing the emotions of the trauma. And it just reduces the emotions of the trauma. EMDR, happening, these kinds of things, and I'm going to be going into them within another session or two, that helps to reduce your stress. Now, I remember, and I mentioned this before, but I think it's a good example. I was on an elevator. There were a few of us on. We knew each other. We're just a group of people that were friends, and we got on the elevator together. And there's one of us that was so anxious, just really terrified of elevators. I didn't even realize she had that problem, but she did. Somebody took out a penny and showed her the penny. Describe the penny. Just look at the penny. Describe it to me. And I didn't realize why they were doing that. I didn't realize she had a problem. Well, this penny has got this figure on it, and it's, what year is it? Well, it's such and such a year, and this and that. By the time that we had gotten to the point where we could get off the elevator, her anxiety level had dropped down significantly. Why? Because she was concentrating on the penny. She wasn't concentrating on anything else, just the penny. And then at the end of that, of course, her anxiety was gone. She got off the elevator. She was okay. So she needed to find a way that she could distract herself when she had to do something that she was afraid of doing. Now, I was on an airplane once. I've mentioned this as well. And there was a woman on there. It was like her first flight, I think, and she was terrified. She was absolutely terrified. Get me off this plane. I can't take it. She was beginning to verbalize all her terror. And, of course, it set everybody on edge because, you know, a lot of people feel a little odd about traveling anyway. A lot of people have no problem with it, but some people do. And so the pilot came out and said, and it was a night flight, thank heavens, and he came out and he says, well, I can help you with that, with your feelings. He said, you can help me fly this plane. She says, I can. And of course, everybody was curious just as how she was going to do that. She said, look at these plane, and there's a light over here, and there's a light over here. these two lights. Yeah, I see those two lights. We have to stay exactly in the middle of those lights. If we stay exactly in the middle of those lights, we're going to be fine. So you can watch and make sure we're exactly in the middle. Okay, she could do that. She spent that whole night flight looking at this light, looking at that light, but her anxiety level really, really dropped. And by the time she got off the plane, she was quite comfortable. Yeah, it really worked. What everybody had the wisdom not to do is they had the wisdom not to let her know that she was looking at the wingtip lights. Every plane has the wings, and you have lights on the wings. So she was looking at the wingtip lights, and she didn't realize that, I mean, of course we're going to be in the middle. The wings are the same size. We got kind of a chuckle out of that, but at the same time it worked with her. So it might be something that you might want to try. You might want to try something that will distract you. I know I went to a funeral once. I learned this quite by accident. It was a funeral. Everybody was emotional. It was a young man, and he had died, and he was a really nice person. Everybody was upset about it, and they were really emotional about it. I had with me a calendar, and in the end, it had a lot of numbers. What are ounces? How many ounces to this? How many ounces to that? How many pounds to something else? It was like a graph kind of thing explaining all of that, and it was numerical. But it took my mind off the whole funeral. I was reading all of the numbers, and it distracted me to the point that I wasn't getting near as upset as everybody else was. And that's the time I thought, well, gee, if you're going to go to a funeral, if you're going to do something that's going to be really, really emotional, why not have something with you to distract you? And you have to know what it's going to be. I mean, a lot of people bring books and magazines to doctors' offices, and so that they can kind of read and spend the time. They may not be trying to distract themselves. They're just trying to find something to do while they wait. But if you're a person that dreads going to a doctor or dreads going to a dentist, bring something that you know will be distracting. And then when you're waiting, do that thing. Maybe it's a puzzle, or maybe it's a joke book, whatever it is. And then you're going to find that your anxiety level drops a lot. So you need to be able to acknowledge acknowledge what you're feeling, and that will help you to drop your anxiety. And the other thing is, you need to remember you can't always trust your emotions. If you're a person that tends to be emotional, something happens, and you're going to wear that on your sleeve all day. And the thing is, you're always going to expect it to be worse than it is. We have a tendency to make things worse than they are. Our brain goes on a trip. Well, this is bad. Well, then that means this is going to happen. That means this is going to happen. And it's worse and worse and worse. You know, with time, we make things worse than they are. So don't trust your emotions. They may be more intense than what they need to be. If you're going through an emotional time and your emotions are very intense, they could be intense because of something in the past that's been unresolved, that's opening up, and you're re-experiencing your past emotions. If you've been abused or you're in a bad accident, you know, you could have some PTSD from that. You could have a problem in terms of remembering it, and your emotions get activated by your brain, so you experience the emotions as well as what the memories were, and they come to fore, and it's hard to get rid of them, and so you have a problem with it. And you've got to remember the emotions will be intense, but they have a life of their own. They may not be accurate. It may not be that it's as bad as what you think it is. So don't define yourself according to your symptoms. Your symptoms are that. They're symptoms, but it doesn't have to define who you are, and they may be distorted, and they may be more intense than they need to be. But I often think if they're very intense, more intense than they need to be, it's because you had a problem in the past, it was unresolved, and you've kind of opened it up again, and you're re-experiencing those emotions all over again. The distraction, however, will be a help to that. Emotions do have to be expressed, and if they're not expressed, you have your inward aggression and your outward aggression. Now, the same is true in terms of depression. There's such a thing as exogenous depression and inward depression that's caused by something that's going on with your system, or depression that's caused by an outward situation. You can have an outward situation kind of thing. You've lost somebody, you lost your job, things that happen and you're depressed about that. It's a situational depression, or a depression that's caused because of something that's going on inwardly. Inwardly would be something happening with your hormones being out of balance, or your biochemistry being out of balance. That would be kind of like an inward cause of a depression. An outward cause of the depression would be situational, something that's happened to you situationally. So you need to, that would be helpful for you to be able to tag into that. So I'm going on now to I'm going on to, okay, there's one other thing I want to do. How do you help with frustration? How do you help with depression? How do you help with anxiety? I've mentioned the fact of distraction and all of that, but here are some tips also. There's no such thing as perfection. If you expect yourself to be perfect, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to be frustrated by that one thing you missed, or that one thing you messed up for in an exam. Don't expect perfection, and don't expect it in other people, and don't expect it of yourself. If you can tolerate, you just tolerate people, tolerate what their problems are, tolerate them, then you will find it's a lot easier to handle yourself. And you've got to decide what your goals are. What's worth striving for? What's worth letting go of? If you can't control everything, if you want to be in charge of everything, and some people do because they feel if they have control, then they can help themselves mentally and physically, but you can't be always in a situation where you have control. So you have to decide what your goals are, what's worth striving for, and what you can let go of. Even if you can do everything, doesn't mean you should do everything. If you can do everything, but if you should you do everything? Should you get yourself bogged down with so much activities that you don't have a break? And what can you let go of? So you have to take stock of your past achievements. You have to realize they're good achievements. You have to have satisfaction with them. And then you have to let go of what you need to let go of. I had a friend. We had a group of people. We were all friends. We were all going to college. And she was going to college too. But she couldn't do the work. She flunked out. And she felt bad about it, but she feels she had to go to college because all of her friends, including myself, were at college. And so she somehow got readmitted. And when she got readmitted, she knew she would be better. She knew she would pass. She flunked out again. And then, on top of that, she said, well, I got to give it one more shot. All my friends are in college. By this time, we're almost ready to graduate. She gets readmitted for a third time, and you'll never guess, she flunked out a third time. By the time she flunked out a third time, she came to the realization that maybe college was not for her, but she might have thought of that to begin with. Not everybody is supposed to go to college. Not everybody is supposed to get advanced degrees. Not everybody is supposed to do what everybody else is doing. There are different ways of making a living that don't require you to go to college. And she turned out to be in the medical field. She had some kind of a job as an assistant or doing some kind of medical thing. It wasn't like being a doctor or a nurse, but she helped out, and she was happy with that. And the thing is that what makes you happy should be something that you can do, and it shouldn't be something that frustrates you so much that you feel that you can't do it, but you've got to do it. You see, you have to plan on what you can give up and what you can do. You have to be faithful to what you believe in, and you have to take stock of your present achievements, and you have to decide what's worth fighting for and what's not worth fighting for. That will help you a lot in terms of anxiety. Now let me get on on to the defense mechanisms, which are also called adjustment mechanisms. Our bodies have a way of handling stress, and we don't tell it how to do it. We don't tell our bodies do it on their own. And there are about 10 ways that people handle stress, and it becomes a part of their personality. It becomes a part of how they handle their living. They protect you from anxiety. They help you to interpret your world. They're used by everyone. Some of them are positive, some of them are more negative, but we all do it. We all have ways in which we handle stress, and we do it in different degrees and in different ways. These ways are called the defense mechanisms, and that's what I'm going to be going over. So the first one is working harder. Like my friend in college, she worked harder and harder, but it didn't help her. If working harder is a defense mechanism, is that you try to do harder what it is that you want to do. You're having problems and you want to work harder to achieve whatever your goals are. Now, sometimes this works, but sometimes it can lead to a compulsion, and you just feel you got to do it, you got to do it, you got to do it. When maybe working harder isn't the right thing to do. Maybe dropping it is the right thing to do. And the work can take your mind off from stress a lot. And so a lot of people work harder and harder because they have stresses in their environment. And if they work harder, they can overcome the stress. Now, it's unhealthy if it's used as a cure-all for everything. If I work harder, I'll be healthier. If I work harder, I'll achieve my goals. Sometimes, of course, that's the case, but it's not the case. It's not always the case. You can't always achieve what you want to achieve, no matter how hard you work. You can't always do things that you want to do, no matter how hard you work. If it becomes compulsive and you're working all the time to achieve something that seems continually out of your reach, then it may be time to change. It might be time to say, no, this isn't working for me. If it's not working for me, I should do something else. The problem with the defense mechanism is that it kind of chooses us. We don't choose it. But if we know what we're doing and we understand that this is the way that we're handling stress, we can make changes. It's not like it can't change. It's like we are oblivious to it. We act in a certain way every time stress comes up, and we don't even pay attention to what we're doing. We're doing certain things, but if it's pointed out to us that we're doing those things, sometimes we can change it. You know, employers like to have people who use harder work and effort and become compulsive because they get more done. But there's a price to pay for it. You know, it is a price to pay if you want to achieve so much and you work so hard to achieve it that you hurt yourself in the process because you become compulsive and your life becomes rigid, and that's all you think about. Now, usually we look at this like it's a good thing. We look at it like it's a good thing because, you know, we say, oh, see, they worked so hard and they finally accomplished their goal. Isn't that wonderful? But at what price? And is it worth it? In the long run, you have to decide if it's worth it. So you want to go to college and you want to be a doctor. Well, you have to go through pre-med school, and then you have to go to medical school, and then you have to take 2 or 3 years off for training for a specialty if you want to go into a specialty. Well, is that really what you want to spend your life doing? Well, it's fine if that is, and if you want to work hard and it comes natural to you. But if it doesn't come natural to you and you're fighting all the time to do better and better and better because you might be eliminated if you don't, then maybe your goals should change. I'm using medicine as an example, but I'm not really emphasizing medicine more than something else. It could be engineering, it could be building, it could be creative activities, it could be writing. You know, you have the book out, you want to have the book out, and then it's a fight because you have to find a publisher to publish it, or you have to do the research to do the book. It could take years to write a book. And so you have to decide for yourself, is it worth the hard work and effort that you have to put into it? It may be, but it may not be. Now, the second mechanism that we use to handle stress is compensation. If you can't be successful in one thing, do something else. Now, it's really a pretty healthy thing. If you want to be in the sports, but you can't do sports, then do something else. Maybe you can do something in the arts. Maybe you could do something in music. In other words, you want to really be good at something, and the harder you work, the more you learn that you can't do it. You know, I'll never be a long-distance runner. Supposing I wanted to be a long-distance runner, I don't. But what if I did? Well, the thing to do is to keep running and running and running and running and running. Well, if I don't have a body that can handle that, should I run more and more and more, or should I do something else? Maybe I can do a different sport. Maybe it can still be a kind of an energetic thing, but not anything like constant running. You know, constant running causes problems. Maybe I can be a skier instead, or maybe I can be a skater instead, or maybe I can be in a group sports, baseball, football, basketball. There's lots of things you can do. Generally speaking, if you can't do one thing and you turn to something else, that's a healthy thing to do. And if you do that, then you'll be in more health than you will be if you just decide to work at something that you can't do, but you keep at it and you keep at it and you keep at it. So that is compensation. And I can remember my niece saying, I'm going to be a brain surgeon or nothing. And we were talking about it. And she says, I want to be in medicine. I says, good, you're smart enough, you can do that. And she said, but I want to be a brain surgeon. And I talked about the medical field and so forth. And she said, it's brain surgery or nothing. Now, she was kind of a preteen teenager when she talked to me about that. And of course, there was a lot of time for her to change her mind. And as it turned out, she went into the medical field as a physician's assistant, I think, and she has a wonderful career, but she's not a brain surgeon. You know, so you have to, there's lots of opportunities out there. You can't stick to just one if it's a problem. What she decided to do was to join the service. And they paid for a lot of her medical education. And she has a terrific career, a terrific family. She's doing well, but she's not a brain surgeon. Open yourself up to various ideas and various opportunities. As I did with her, I said, you know, there's a lot of ideas and a lot of things you can do. But instead of brain surgery, if you want to think about something else, there's all kinds of opportunities that you can do. It's not brain surgery or nothing. When you think one thing and nothing else, you're thinking about black and white thinking. It's got to be all good or all bad. There's nothing in between. There's no shades of gray. This is good, this is bad. And somehow you're on some kind of a trajectory where you have to be good all the time. And you don't open yourself to the various gradations of things that you can do. There are many things that you can do. Well, I'm kind of running out of time, so I guess I'll close it here. But the next time we're going to go through the defense mechanisms, what they are. And I've done it before, but I'm doing it again because it's important, especially in this time of pandemic, to know how you handle stress. And you may be able to see what you are doing for stress, and then maybe change what you're doing to make you healthier and to make you to feel better as well. So I'm going to close it here. Please join me next time.